Apocalyptic scenarios and surviving after them are incredibly prevalent throughout sci-fi and media as a whole. These stories even permeate myth and legend, history, culture and religion, especially the idea of the Great Flood. But while these situations do seem a tiny bit miserable, there are many post-apocalypses that don't meet expectations, or that are downright utopic. We'll be looking at these world-ending events that didn't end the world in today's video, including real life. Did you know that's us right now, living in a post-apocalypse? Firstly, there's the idea of a bit of a soft apocalypse. Yes, the societies from before whatever ended them are gone, but what came after is managing relatively okay. The setting of Judge Dredd is a bit miserable with how difficult things are in the new society, but at least there is a new society. Cyberpunk 2077 is pretty similar, with the setting having gone through multiple devastating corporate wars and ecological collapse. But things are still moving along, just in a different way. That sort of thing has also happened in real life, and hold on to that thought for a sec, because before that, there were also numerous mass extinction events in the distant past that completely shifted the balance of life on the planet. Everyone knows about the big one that wiped out the dinosaurs, but before that, there was a big one that left room for them to become dominant in the first place. And before that, were even more. Humanity as we know ourselves also almost didn't even exist, since there's evidence to suggest our ancestors nearly 1 million years ago almost never made it, with their population going as low as perhaps 1,000. Isn't that crazy to think about? They did survive though, but many other species didn't, like during and after the ice ages in more relatively recent history, where megafauna like the woolly mammoth disappeared. After civilization had actually gotten started, it also ended, or nearly ended, a few times. This is that small-scale societal collapse I had you hold on to the thought of, but I'm sure it still felt apocalyptic for those living in those societies. Our science advisor Gab pointed out the late Bronze Age collapse to me, a period where numerous economies throughout the Mediterranean failed, following resource shortages driven by climate change, natural disasters and warfare. This led to those societies being much reduced for hundreds of years, with many of their peoples reverting to a simpler way of life to survive. If you yourself feel like rebuilding after an apocalypse, then you might be interested in today's sponsor, Hungry Minds, and their book, The Ultimate Guide to Rebuilding a Civilization. This absolute chonker is an exquisitely illustrated encyclopedia covering exactly what it sounds like it does, starting at the basics of survival and building up through all of the eras of humankind's history. The 180 topics in the book are covered with gorgeous art on every page that just makes you want to keep turning through those pages to learn ever more fascinating things about the world, and the book itself, which is just so full of character. As if this good stuff wasn't enticing enough, there's also something secret hidden on the pages, waiting to be discovered and decoded. Stuff like this is why this book was such a success through crowdfunding and on to being a bestseller. So whether you're looking for something beautiful and very premium to add to your library, looking for a gift for somebody curious, even if it's yourself, or really into hunting for insane puzzles, then check out the book using the links in the description and pinned comment below, and you can use the code promo code 10 for 10% off. So as I was saying, this scaling back of society to something more basic and then building up from there is something that Fallout does very well. Both the games and the TV show depict many settlements in various states, from basic little farms to protected towns and all the way up to the functioning city of Shady Sands. This started out as a farm, absolutely thrived, merged with its neighbours and eventually became the beating heart of the new California Republic. This one town by itself goes from the basics of farming to survive, all the way up to restarting the complexities of an advanced society, all in the wake of the Great War. But that's not all the setting has for creating continuity of civilization in the face of terrible odds. There's also the vaults that the setting is known for, and where the protagonist of each installment began their journey. Well, except for the courier in New Vegas, but they can wait a sec. The vaults, while yes there's wacky experiments in many of them, the general idea is for people to live down in these bunkers through nuclear war to to emerge later to rebuild. That's actually how Shady Sands, and many other settlements, first started. But back to the Courier, who is an exception because the whole game and location of New Vegas is an exception. The eponymous city itself, and even much of the surrounding area, actually survived the war mostly unscathed due to a missile defense system, which shows that mitigating the negative effects is another way to continue things after an apocalypse. Star Trek is another setting that bounced back after the effects of a global war and Khan's rippling pecs. Things were a bit rough for a few years, but the creation of the warp drive and subsequent first contact with advanced alien life united the planet, propelling Earth into a period of enlightenment. It eventually became a utopian paradise and leading member of the Federation, a far cry from the dark days after the war. Really, this is the poster child of continued progress, making brief, terrible times seem like a footnote when compared to the whole timeline. It doesn't always go that well though, as Warhammer 40k shows, since that's a setting that's just continuous calamities everywhere on every scale. There were massive end times in ancient history, there's big story important end times during the Horus Heresy, and the current timeline has planetary destruction going on all over the place. It's a tiny bit less happy than Star Trek, but at least it shows that the end of one world doesn't mean the end of everything everywhere, which is an important point by itself really. The real-life Bronze Age collapse mentioned earlier was related to particular civilizations in a specific geographical place, but not globally. That, along with the endless march of time, means stumbling upon the leftovers of someone else's apocalypse is a pretty common occurrence in real life and sci-fi. A small-scale example of this is the classic Missing Colony, and since it's recent, I'm mentioning Marathon, where multiple calamities befell the poor colonists of Tau Ceti 4. There's the alien attacks from the first game, which was followed by a weird plague and crazy anomalies, leaving the place abandoned. A really large-scale example is the setting for Mass Effect, where the Protheans were wiped out across the whole galaxy. This one is different due to the timescale involved, since it happened tens of thousands of years ago and, well, it was a pretty permanent wiping out of the Protheans. But it did provide an impetus for the various peoples of the galaxy in the present day of the setting to attempt to ward off a coming apocalypse of their own by sending arcs off to the Andromeda Galaxy. And that idea of evacuation is another way to create a post-apocalyptic setting that doesn't seem like one. As I'm writing this, Starfield has just released a big update, and that's a great example. The basic story there is that Earth's atmosphere got messed up and they had to escape before it vanished entirely, causing what remained of humanity to be spread out over numerous star systems. When you start thinking about it, the evacuation idea crops up a lot in fiction, and why not? It's as good an excuse as any to leave Earth behind. Children of a Dead Earth does it, Titan AE does it, Wall-E does it, Firefly does it. The Wandering Earth takes it literally, evacuating the Earth. It's not just an exodus from our planet that crops up. Homeworld has one from Karak. Battlestar Galactica has one from multiple worlds. It's almost a whole subgenre unto itself, and covers every base with post-apocalypse scenarios, from people stuck in ships for years, or life continuing elsewhere without a thought for where they came from. So what I've been trying to demonstrate is that the stereotypical post-apocalypse that so many stories use is only a tiny fraction of what's possible. There's so many more ways they can be utilised without everything always being a horrible, hopeless nightmare. Though to be fair, those are interesting to see people struggle through. But those periods of struggle can themselves be included in the history of a setting, and it wouldn't even be unrealistic. You can support Spacedock by joining our Patreon, where you can get our frigate, fighter and carrier design reference books, as well as 1 week early access to upcoming videos. Thanks to our supporters, and thank you for watching.